The Honourable John Banks.
Mr Speaker, I was listening carefully to the co-leader of the Greens Party, and I was shocked to recall in my mind the committee stages of this bill when her colleague Holly Walker simply denied that there was a link between the supply of land and the price of homes. And a sad reminder to us that the Greens simply choose to deny basic economics. As I said earlier, the time for debating the problem is over. A long time ago it was over. And today we have an opportunity, and I'm reminded of the advice that Keith Holyoake gave us all of those years ago as young members of Parliament. He said every bill that comes into the House, there'll be 80% of the stuff that you'll agree with and 20% that you won't. But he says, if you're part of a team promoting it, you go with the 80% because that's the way it works. And I was surprised that the Labor Party this afternoon, who look after the poor and the dispossessed and the low-paid workers and those striving to make ends meet and get a better life, would deny them the opportunity through this bill to own their first home as a first step, even if they don't agree with 100% of young Nick Smith's bill. They only agree with 80% of it. And listening to the speeches today, there's a lot that they do agree with and not much they disagree with, but they're not going to support it and they're not going to vote for it. That is not the way this Parliament should work in the best interest of people struggling to buy their first home. So the ACT Party and the people of Epsom are pleased that the National Party is doing at least something to address the issues, because what the opposition parties are suggesting is simply not workable. Labor wants to tax New Zealanders more, a capital gains tax that can't work. They have a xenophobic attitude towards foreign ownership because presumably the foreign owners, the 3.7% that bought homes in Auckland last year, are going to take them out on the Cathay Pacific flight to Hong Kong tonight. And then the next proposition is that they're going to build 300,000 new homes over the, 100,000 new homes over the next 10 years, 10,000 homes a year. In the last 12 months, 1,300 new homes were built in Auckland. It's not going to happen. This is a way forward. This is a mandate to get some progress. Mr Speaker, during the period 2001 to 2007, house prices nearly doubled and wages didn't increase by more than 20%. And with prices still rising, far too many young people are struggling to purchase their new homes. I was disappointed to learn in the House today that the 5 big banks, foreign-owned banks, lending into the housing market in New Zealand are putting a premium, interest premium rate, a penalty if you like, on those new home buyers and low-income families that are struggling to get into their first home with their mortgages because they're stretched beyond the loan value ratios that suit the bank. That is disappointing. If this Parliament can do something in the interest of getting people into their own home and building more houses in a property-owning democracy, then I think the rich and powerful foreign-owned banks should pull their weight. The Productivity Commission has concluded there is simply not enough land that is free to build on, and as a result there aren't enough houses. In Auckland, the price of a section is on average 60% of the price of a home. This is extremely high by international standards. The diagnosis of the problem is complete. We now know the problem. I think all sides of this Parliament agree with the problem. It's a land supply problem. It's a demand problem. There's not enough land in our big cities like Auckland and Christchurch within the urban metropolitan limits that allow the building of new homes for new home buyers. And there isn't enough land supply problem because there isn't enough actual land. That's why there's a land supply problem. New Zealand is one of the least densely populated nations in the world, with only 3% taken up by residential development. So why aren't people building on the spare land? The issue is we aren't allowed to build on most of it. Government, through the Resource Management Act, and I was here in the Parliament in 1991 at 11:15 at night, within 7 minutes we passed unanimously in this House the Resource Management Act. It has been the greatest handbrake on investment, growth and jobs this country has ever seen. This government under Amy Adams is doing something about it. We're trying to address it. There's a long way to go, but the Resource Management Act and the bureaucratic interpretation by individual local authorities has been very bad in the interest of supplying more land to build more houses. Mr. Speaker, it is great to see we're making some progress. The metropolitan urban limit that I talked about is the worst offender. Land 2 kilometres inside the metropolitan urban limit is 8.65 times more expensive than land 2 kilometres outside of it. That is staggering. The Housing Accord Bill is a lukewarm response to this, but the ACT Party and the people of Epsom want me to support this in the House today because it is a major step in the right direction. I could throw out the toys from the cot, but I've decided that on balance the progress is such that it deserves the attention of this House today, deserves to be put on the statute books so we can get more people in their home in a property-owning democracy. So I'm supporting this bill. The bill itself says that these special housing zones will be established in areas that are already having a housing affordability problem. That amounts to waiting for the problem to occur and then rushing in to provide some short-term relief. So the ACT Party supports significant reform to the RMA. The ACT Party supports freedom to build. The ACT Party supports the freedom to build a new housing development when there is demand from the community for more homes. The people of Epsom support a less hands-on approach by territorial local authorities and some time constraints around the bureaucratic process of resource consent, and this bill addresses that. We need to let the market operate as freely as possible so new houses will get built in response to demand. New Zealanders want affordable homes. Developers want to build affordable homes. Yet unnecessary regulation is stopping simple demand and supply from working. The ACT Party is committed to real reform around the Resource Management Act, and we'll have plenty to say about that as this Parliament rolls on. But we're pleased that the Minister and that the National Party is doing at least something to address the issues through this legislation, because what the opposition parties are suggesting is laughable. It's time for real action, Mr. Speaker. Not just a few special housing areas and places where they have a real crisis on our hands, but New Zealanders who work hard deserve to be able to save and buy their own home. We must restore the freedom to build. The people of Epsom and the ACT Party support this legislation.
I call Dennis O'Rourke.
Mr. Speaker, the National Government has waited several years while a housing crisis developed.